In 2010, a blizzard swept through Southland, resulting in the loss of 800,000 lambs in just 7 days. The economic impact was estimated at over $100 million. It's believed it'll take up to 3 years for the region to recover. Dave Clark was one of many farmers who were affected.
About 320 hectares effective, and we're predominantly sheep and beef, well at least we were prior to September, with a little bit of heifer dairy grazing. After September, quite a bit more dairy heifer grazing, so just to try and make up the windfall of capital stock that we lost through the storms. We are a little bit exposed in places, so we do have a shelter program, establishment program in place, but that just takes time. And the thing was, in September it wouldn't have done any use anyway.
Poor wee buggers, like you just feel for them, eh?
Something never really heard of in September was half a foot of snow on the ground. Usually we'll get a dusting and it'll be gone in the afternoon, but it got to the point where we couldn't get round, couldn't swing gates open or anything like that, like lifting gates off hinges to get through and get round. And the stock were in their camps, camped up, so there was no point disturbing them. Sunday there was still snow. It hadn't stopped all Saturday, so yeah, so there was still a good coating of snow there on the Sundays. So it was a matter of going around and checking for sleepy and milk fever and that. They were starting to go down. Basically, we couldn't get enough cause mag in them. And we were lucky. We started lambing the 8th of September, so we were most of the way through. We probably only had about 400 or 500 left to lamb. I hate thinking about it, but there was lambs all dead up along that fence line, all covered in mud, and yeah, they didn't have a chance. And even underneath the shout abouts, it was just wet and mud, and it wasn't a nice area either. So there was the Saturday and the Sunday, there was, you know, a good half a foot of snow, 3/4 foot of snow here. There were people who had full gullies filled in. Not far from here there was drifts, you know, a couple of metres. It's an ongoing saga, like because we're down in numbers, like lamb numbers, the lamb crop, it's like we went through the ewe lambs the other day and there just wasn't the number there that, you know, usually we'd like to have, you know, 800, 900, 1,000 to look at, well at least 1,000 to pick through, whereas we only had sort of scratching 700, so, you know, the number of replacements we need for 3,000 odd ewes was 750, 800, so we were having to go out and buy in 50 odd ewe lambs just to try and pump the numbers up a wee bit. So it sort of hurts when you look at it like that. But the way it is with wool prices and lamb prices coming up again, it sort of gives you a positive note. And the bank manager's still relatively happy because we took on extra dairy grazing at the end of September because we knew there was going to be a shortfall of capital stock, so we needed some income of some sort coming in. So we were lucky that we got onto that pretty quick. With also being the monitor farmer, East and Southland monitor farmer for the beef and lamb, it's sort of thrown us into the spotlight. They called me the face, the farmer face of the storm because I was thrown on the news with David speaking with David Carter and that. And it probably put the effects of the storm out there a bit more in the public possibly. By the time we come around to the next field day, we were all sick of hearing about the storm, so we wanted to change the topic and talk about something positive. That was the worst thing about the storm was you kept hearing about it 3 or 4 months and you're still hearing about it now. It's quite hard, quite demoralising thinking back to it. It's like a nightmare that you don't want to, yeah. But it is good to talk about because it makes you think about how we could better prepare for it in the future, I guess. The sheep that we've just put through, they probably were one of our saviours from the storm. For the first time we lambed some of the hoggets, just the best of the hoggets, and there was 300 of them. Yeah, so we got about 270 odd lambs out of them, so they were sort of probably one of our saviours from the storm. We lost about 60 odd ewes through storm casualties and 600 odd lambs. You know, budgeted on, you know, an extra 600 lambs than what we ended up with at tailing time. So we brought in, prior to Christmas, we brought in just under 400 stall lambs to try and bump up the lamb numbers, but also we took on extra dairy grazing. So yes, it was sort of just about there back up to, you know, wintering numbers. Well, this mob behind me, they're dairy grazers. Hopefully they're all in calf. They've helped with the income, monthly income for grazing them. The worst thing is that they're not our own stock, but it's something different, and I quite like them. They're quite a good tool as well. The only worst thing is with being sheep and beef, generally we're really short in pasture in October, November, when these girls need the best tucker to try and get in calf. But apart from that, they are quite nice to have.
David Rose is another farmer coping with losses. He's also currently on the National Board of Federated Farmers and the Adverse Events spokesman for the organisation.
Beef and lamb tell me it's 1.5 million down in the South Island and surprisingly 1.3 in the north. The one thing out of this storm that most people haven't picked up on is that the central North Island was badly affected too. Farmers in Taihape are 30% down their lambing percentage as well, so it's had a big effect across the whole country. Well, my own situation, the thoughts were to grow my lambs a couple of k's heavier and see how we got on with that, look at taking off baleage or hay to take away any surplus. But it got very dry after an initial huge boost of growth in November, and like most people in this area, we've been struggling to feed what we've got, and our freezing works are even having days where they're not working, which is unheard of. I don't know if we could have done a lot extra. One of the things with sheep farming, once you put your rams out, your lambing date's set. So a lot of people talk about there's a storm coming, take all your sheep in. It's just not physically possible. We just adapt. We've got to. That's what we do. That's our livelihood. And as long as we support each other, I'm sure we can get through anything. The Rural Support Trust was out and about. There were a lot of food parcels. They visited 1,000 farmers down here, and that was about checking how people were going. So the Rural Support Trusts are out in any adverse event. And of course, Federated Farmers is only a phone call away as well. There's always someone that can lend a hand or can help you. You've just got to ask.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.